This year, Sony have released two new super telephoto lenses, and today we're super excited to be having a look at their most versatile one, the Sony 200 to 600mm G lens. Now, the Sony 200 to 600mm G lens is designed for versatility in the super telephoto range. So you get tele at 200mm and all the way up to super tele at 600mm, making it a really versatile lens for people looking to do action photography, birds and wildlife photography, and also even landscapes and portraiture when shooting at the wider end of the lens. Let's check it out. To go over the nits and grits of this lens, as I mentioned earlier, the lens has a 200 to 600mm focal length, giving you a versatile telephoto to super telephoto range. To back that up, it's got a max aperture of f5 to 6.3, a minimum aperture of f36, which gives you a lot of room to stop down. And just to back it up as well, for bokeh, it has a 11 rounded blade aperture diaphragm, so you're gonna get nice and smooth results. On the inside of the lens, it's got 5 ED elements and 1 aspherical element, just to help with your standard chromatic aberrations. And to help with ghosting and flaring, it's got nano AR coating. And just to keep the lens nice and clean and to battle against the elements, it is coated with fluorine coating. Now, with any other super telephoto lens, it does have multiple modes of image stabilization. The first being just like a general all-round one that works well with the sensor shift stabilization of your camera. Got another stabilization function which prioritizes the viewfinder, and another stabilization function that really prioritizes panning. And finally, the Sony 200 600mm is compatible with the Sony 1.4 and 2x teleconverters, just to give you that bit of extra reach. And now moving on to my impressions on the design of the Sony 200 to 600mm. So let's start from the front. It's got a 95mm filter thread, which is really big, however, completely understandable for the versatile focal length you get in this lens. And just behind that, you have the nice and large zoom ring, which is completely rubberized and feels pretty good to zoom through. One of my favorite features of the Sony 200 600mm is it is completely internally zoomed. So the physical size of the lens won't change when you're zooming in and out, which is a godsend. Behind the zoom ring as well, you have your focus hold buttons, giving you a large array of programmable features just to get your shooting experience a lot faster. And behind that is the focus ring. Now, normally I'm not a big fan of the focus ring being behind the zoom ring. However, in this case, it really isn't too much of an issue. It's nice and wide and smooth, so you're gonna get some good results if you do decide to use the manual focus ring. Below that, you have the same tripod collar that is in a lot of their telephoto lenses, so you can move it all around the lens, but also you can easily take it off just by unscrewing the side, hitting the button for the dislock, and then you can just take out the tripod collar when you don't need it. And finally, just below that, you have your standard switches on your lens, such as your autofocus to manual focus switch, focus limiter, as well as your optical image stabilization modes. Overall, the lens weighs around 1.4 kilograms, which for a lens of this caliber isn't too bad. And the size of it relatively compared to other telephotos around this range, such as the Sigma 150 to 600, is a pretty good size. So you're looking at a quite compact, and I say compact in inverted commas because the lens is quite large, super telephoto lens for you to use on your everyday use as well as your professional work. Now, in addition to that, the lens is dust and moisture resistant, so if you're going to be using it in poorer weather conditions, the lens will power through that. So now I'm just going to go over the pros and cons of this lens, and we're going to start with the pros. Now, the question on everyone's mind is how good is the image quality on the 200 to 600mm, and it's safe to say it's fantastic. Sony have done a really good job with the construction of this lens optically, so you get some pretty good sharp results with great clarity. And to deal with all the aberrations, vignetting and ghosting, the double coatings do a really good job of keeping those out of the photo. Now to back all of that up, you've got a pretty responsive autofocus system as well. Now, although the Sony 200-600mm doesn't use their best linear autofocus technology like you see in their G Master lenses, it does a pretty good job of keeping up, and there wasn't really a point shooting with this where I felt frustrated with the focus system. And so overall, it's a pretty good damn lens if you're going to be taking it out for your telephoto usage or your super telephoto bird or wildlife action shooting. Secondly, the price on the Sony 200-600mm is quite attractive, costing only above $3,000 Australian. Now, this makes a really attractive choice for enthusiasts and professionals looking to get a good telephoto lens with a nice and versatile focal length. Thirdly, the image stabilization on the lens is great. When you combine it with the sensor shift stabilization as well in Sony bodies, you get a pretty nice stable result. Although I wouldn't be using this lens handheld a lot of the time because it is quite front heavy, it's nice to know that you can do that if you wish to. Fourthly, as I mentioned earlier, the lens is a pretty reasonable weight and size compared to other super telephoto lenses out there, so you won't really struggle too much carrying it around. Next, I'm going to talk about the cons of the Sony 200-600mm lens. The first thing is, although it doesn't really faze me too much, I know this will be an issue that might come up for some other people, and that is the origin of manufacture of the lens. So the Sony 200-600mm is made in China, which compared to any other Sony product out there, most of them are made in Thailand. However, some cameras and lenses, such as the Sony a7R III, is produced in their China factory. Now, they do have some good quality control in that factory, as you've seen in the Sony a7R III, where it doesn't really present too many issues, if any at all. So you can pretty much guarantee yourself that the 200-600mm will be of some good quality. Secondly, the Sony 200-600mm does have a lower end maximum aperture with only f5 to 6.3. Which really you'll only be able to use the lens in good lighting conditions during the day and not really more so in the twilight, dawn, or in a low lit indoor area. Now you can bump up the ISO in your camera as Sony has pretty good low light capabilities. However, you do risk the loss of dynamic range and potential noise throughout your photos. So right now what we're going to do is we're gonna do just a sharpness test. So we're going to shoot it at the max aperture and then we're going to stop it down just to see if there is a varying difference in quality and how much of a difference in quality there is. So I'm just going to shoot those leaves over there using this tripod because I don't want to break my wrists, and we'll see how we go. So after looking at those first set of photos, it looks like shooting at f6.3 doesn't have the best sharpness. The images do look good, but the edges are a bit soft in the center. So I'm going to have a look now at shooting at the wider end of the lens at 200mm, opening it up all the way up to f5 and then stopping down, just to see if the results vary on this end of the lens. Oh my God. On the second lot of samples, shooting at 200mm at f5.6, the images look pretty good. Now, they obviously can be a lot sharper, having a look at these. However, with this focal length and really the ability to go through 200 to 600, you do get some pretty good results. Stopping down again at f8 or f11 or f16, the images do come out a bit sharper. However, definitely usable at 5.6, which is good news. So I just realized we just filmed the whole segment indoors, and I think I've been saying f5 to 6.3. What I was meant to say is the aperture range is actually f5.6 to 6.3. Just a correction throughout the whole video. My final thoughts on the Sony 200-600mm lens. Now, apart from the minor cons that the lens does have, the pros overweigh it by a lot. You've got a good price point, great optical quality, awesome autofocus, and especially for the compact size of the lens, you're not going to get a versatile focal length in a telephoto lens at this size on the market for your Sony system. If you're an enthusiast or professional looking for that one-stop shop versatile telephoto lens, we highly recommend going for the Sony 200 to 600mm. Now, if you have any questions on the lens, pop them in the comments below. Make sure to follow us on our Facebook, Instagram, as well as our blog, which links to those are in our description below, just to stay up to date with our latest events and what's going on in store. And as always, hit the like button and the subscribe button so you don't miss out on our future updates as we upload videos weekly. Oh my God.